Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pitstop May 2020 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers that burning question in your mind. What's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? This month, I talk with Simon Bourdages, a senior program manager on the SharePoint team, solely focused on making the migration experience for Microsoft tools and third-party migration offerings easier, more scalable, and performant. This month, we talk with Simon about the breadth of migration offerings and the new methods for how the SharePoint migration tool supports migrating content from on-premises directly into Microsoft Teams. Consider this the message center for everyone. May was a busy month. May this be your May way to stay up to date. Let's kick off into everything employee engagement. We'll start with the fact that SharePoint home sites are live, also known as available to everyone. A home site is the top landing page for your organization's intelligent intranet. With a simple PowerShell commandlet, you deem a communication site the home site. It will be a highly visible and highly unique entry point, including the new home button that appears in the SharePoint mobile app. In addition, your home site will be automatically set up to be an organizational news site and have organization-wide search pre-configured. So, set SPO home site today. You can learn more how to do this with our documentation on setting up a home site. Moving on, the Saved for Later web part is now available for modern pages. We're adding a new way for each user to see the content they've saved when they view your page. There are a few places Microsoft uses the Save for Later web part, and now you can use it where it makes sense. Page authors determine the source of saved items that will show up, so all saved items to show all the page viewers' items across SharePoint, or saved items from this site to show all of the users' saved items from the site on which the page is located. We couldn't save this one any longer. Rollout began this month, so don't save it anymore. Put Save for Later on any page across SharePoint. Next, the Yammer Conversations web part got a nice update. You'll now see the new Yammer experience embedded into SharePoint pages. You'll be able to create any type of Yammer post directly in SharePoint. Start a conversation in any community, upload images and files into Yammer Conversations all directly from SharePoint. It is the year of Yammer, and that includes updating the bidirectional conversation value you can build into your site and portal experiences. A small FYI, we got a two-part discussion on the Intrazone with our Yammer leads covering all the new Year of Yammer innovation. Part 1 is out already, and Part 2 is coming next week. Let's dive into scheduling pages and news posts. We're introducing the ability for SharePoint page authors to schedule pages and news posts for publication at a future date and time. SharePoint site owners will have the option to enable scheduling on their sites. Note, it is disabled by default. When scheduling is enabled, page authors will be able to set a date and time for their pages and news posts to publish. It's that easy. Plan ahead and rest easy knowing pages and news can go live on schedule. Staying with publishing for a moment, there is now a new pre-publish overview experience in SharePoint. When page authors select an action such as publish, republish, post news, update news, schedule, or submit for approval, the pre-publish panel appears on the right. Here you'll get an overview of the site name, a thumbnail preview, and information about what happens when you publish. The pre-published panel also has a link to the page details pane so authors can make changes if needed. Pre-visualization is the key to pre-publishing success. And last but not, it is fitting that this one is the last item of our employee engagement section. Now you can show more content with the new extended site footer. The site footer in modern communication sites will now include a new layout option, Extended, which means you can show more content at the bottom of your communication pages. You can now select a distinct background color too to distinguish it from the other sections above. Note, the site footer is only available on communication site pages. They are not available for list pages, library pages, or other pages on your site. You can learn more and how to customize the navigation on your SharePoint site. I'll make sure to include that link in the show notes. Let's turn now to learn a little bit more about migration across all of the offerings and specifically what migration update shipped this month in May. We'll take a pause here to talk to Simon Bourdages, Senior Program Manager on the SharePoint team. So now that we've heard a little bit about what's rolling out, let's talk to Simon Bourdages, who is one of our senior program managers focused on migration really for a lot of things that we offer through the different scenarios and different tools, but is here today to talk to us about the SharePoint migration tool and specifically what's rolled out this past month. So Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here and talk about all the new things we've been rolling out.
I am too, because I think the migration pace that you guys are on is migrating. I don't know if we can talk the amount of content that's moving through and into Microsoft 365, but of the numbers that I've seen, it's a tremendous amount, and it's a lot to do with the work that you and your team are doing.
Definitely. I think the thing that's always impressive is how it grows every month, and we're always surprised of it keeps growing tremendously, and we're always definitely surprised that customers would think that, we're going to be too big for Microsoft, and then we show them the number and they realize, okay, that everything's possible now.
Yeah, I remember the days when there was, please give us a heads up when you're moving a significant amount of content. And even way back 5, maybe 10 years, it was, send us your hard drive. But the way that you've optimized and the tooling, and of course, in addition to what our third parties offer, it's a tremendous amount of content that's coming in, and then the greatness that is, what you can do with your content that really lights up once it's in Microsoft 365. Before we though get into the technology, I know and have worked with you for a while, but for our audience, can you give us a little bit of history of your background into Microsoft and what you've done with the team up until SharePoint migration?
Yeah, definitely. I graduated from École Polytechnique of Montreal in Canada and in software engineering. And then I did the interview for Microsoft 7 years ago. And then they asked me, what do you want to work on? And I said, I want to work on something for business and something that has a lot of usage. So seems like de facto they sent me towards SharePoint. And I was pretty actually impressed as soon as I joined the community around SharePoint and all that, and how big it was already, and it keeps growing, of course. So I started on the UX team, and it was right at that time where the cloud was actually being created, if you say. Like SharePoint Online was on its first year of being rolled out and being used by a customer, and then did a bit of UX work here and there, and then that transition about a year or two into the job, they said, well, in the past we used to tell customer, you have this SharePoint on premise, you just upgrade to the next version, and that's how you move on. But now with SharePoint Online, we needed a way to help those customer quote unquote upgrade or migrate to SharePoint Online. So there's a brand new team that was formed for that. They asked me if I wanted to be the PM for that space. So I jumped in. I was actually super excited because I did 3 years of IT before, and I was excited to go bring some goodness to the IT community, because I know that there's a lot of things that sometimes are can be improved, and I was hopeful to help in that space. At that point, we drove to first partner that we met, and we said, what can you do? And then we were underwhelmed by what our current solutions were. So what we did is we said, okay, we need to build a stable platform to help our partner community help move our customers. So that's really was the foundation of all the work that proceeded after.
Nice. We're here to talk about SharePoint migration tool. Can you just set the stage for the broader portfolio and how you both talk with customers and partners and internally to then design what it is that we can offer through a number of different scenarios?
Definitely. Our approach and philosophy, like our goal of our team is to help customer transition to the cloud. And then if we think of it in scenarios based, so basically you can come from different environment. And really our goal was to try to enable as much an environment to be brought over to our service. So when we think of that, there's definitely the SharePoint Online community there. As I said, that's been a bit of a starting ground. So the SharePoint migration tool was kind of founded in the principle that we should be able to help our customer transition from our on-prem environment to our online environment. So that's where the SharePoint migration tool come in play, and it's a free tool that basically set the bar to bring the 80% of your content fairly easily into our service. And then on top of that, there's the file share environment. So that's another scenario that's commonly mixed in with on-prem SharePoint. But if you have like file share systems that or network drives for your users or your collaboration scenarios, we actually enable that scenario with the SharePoint migration tool as well. And then on top of that, if you have a large scale one, let's talk multiple thousands of users or root folders that you need to migrate, that's where Migration Manager came in, and we said we needed to help the community to bring those large environment that actually often happens a lot more with file share. So we allowed them to basically set up multiple agents and bring all that content and all managed through O365 Admin Center. So in an easy fashion in Admin Center. And then another scenario that came in, and back to the recent acquisition, we acquired Mover for their cloud to cloud expertise. So when you think of cloud content from either a different various computer, or even sometimes you just want to move content from one tenant to another, Mover is a great solution for that. So that's an added thing that we added to our portfolio of tools that we offer. And then, of course, there's the Fast Track community and the partner community in MCS. So those are added on top of the free offerings that we give. Partners are a great way to go complement for, like I said, if one of those tools can move 80% of your content or more free and easy, then maybe there's a few things that you need the partner help for. That's where there's great added value there.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get your take on next is, before any person tool touches the migration API, for lack of a better way of describing it, before you press the green button, go, how would you describe, both from how we approach it and, of course, through our partners, both for planning and for executing, the approach to before I press the button? What do I do, or what should I do as a best practice to plan before I actually start to migrate?
This is actually a space that with time, I think I gathered a lot of learning experience, and it's always been for some people the place where they ask for more and more guidance. So first, I would like to say that we actually have guidance online that we can put the link in the article later, but to help people, basically a step-by-step book for guidance for planning for your migration. But really, when I think of it, there's always a setup part, which is just do you have connection to your destination? A lot of customers, sometimes they have to figure out, is my internet connection going to be set up to do the migration or not, and things like that. So that's more of a setup piece at the beginning. But really, when it comes to planning for migration, first, we call it discovery. I think you can have multiple names, but understanding what you have is a key part that is often taken for granted. But knowing what is in that you want to move or not, we actually provide tooling that can help just scan your environment. We have the SharePoint Migration Assessment tool that helps for on-premise, and we also have SPMT that can scan your file share and just at least give you a summary of what you have. And actually, it tells you things that you might want to go address or not. So basically, those files are checked out. You might want to go address that before migrating the content. So this is an initial step to understand what you have and what you should go address. Now, for as far as planning goes, so stepping one step down, the process that really I like to give to people is first is understand what you want to move or not. So we even have options in the tools to say, I only want to move the last year of content, things that have been not touched in the previous 5 years. We don't want to have to complicate it. So everything that you can filter out or decide to not move is simplicity that you're bringing to your migration plan. Basically, every time that you reduce the amount of content you need to move, the easier the projects become. And then once you know what you're moving, what you're not moving, there's a discussion of, okay, where is it going? So that is a different step where you say, for my content that they decided to move, I'm going to be able to build what we call a mapping of this content goes to OneDrive, this content goes to a certain team site that we have for collaboration, and that's basically step 2. And then at the end, recipes for success, I would say really start with pilot. Just do your test, make sure that it's a representative pilot that represent different scenarios that you want to bring across, and then see how it looks, and then you can expand and do your full-scale migration. That is really, in a nutshell, at a 1,000-foot view, I would approach it. And then there's a little segment I would mention. Think of what it will look like during your migration, meaning, do you want to set up hybrid connection? That way your users can seamlessly use on-prem and online at the same time. So just think of what it will look like as your migration is happening.
Yeah, I like the concept of a customer almost seeing it as a time when they can think about, do I want this content to move forward? Is it outdated? Do I have the wrong version? You can get pretty granular before you hit the button. And I think some of those notions of being aware of what is possible so that that's not a blocker of perception really gets people set up for success in that how do they want their business to operate once content lands in this new space? Will people find outdated content? Will they use the wrong version? You can correct a lot of that. It's not to minimize how much content you bring to Microsoft 365, right? It's not a limit of size or scale for the most part, but it really is wanting to set them up for success, not only how they approach planning and executing a migration, but how they then can transition to leveraging the cloud for business.
Definitely. And I was going to add to that, another very common occurrence is actually thinking about setting yourself up for success using the new functionality in the cloud, such as Microsoft SharePoint hubs. And basically, instead of bringing your subsites as is, reconsidering, is it the right time to make sure that you don't bring depth as you move to the cloud. So I think this is a great moment to think about those things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would think that there's a lot of information architects out there that would 100% agree with you that if you know that end structure or you're taking time to restructure, part of that can be dictated by the end goal, the outcome, and migration will only follow that pattern that you set up, which is really great. So let's talk about what's new this month. You had mentioned the notion of knowing your destination. And it's really exciting this month. I won't spoil it, but with the SharePoint migration tool, you can now do what as a destination?
Yeah, we added the Teams integration basically into the SharePoint migration tool. We are really excited because we knew a lot of people, especially now more than ever, want to be able to transition their content and then see those files show up directly into Teams. So we made it very easy in the tool to basically say, you select your source content and then you get prompted with basically 3 different options: OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. And at that point, we made it very fluid where not only can you go in Teams and search the teams that you're the owner of and bring content into it, select what channels goes the content into, so you can go very granular, but you also don't need to be a IT expert. Actually, you as Mark, you can decide to run the tool and select the content you want to move, and then if you're the owner of that Teams, you can move content into it.
Yeah, I've seen the screens. I'll be frank, I haven't tried it myself, but I've seen your demos, and I trust a lot of where it has been and where it's going. And I think in the present state, we know a lot of people are using Microsoft Teams, and a lot of people are starting new files and new teams with their own files. But that notion of being able to move from SharePoint on-premises or a file share and move that into the appropriate place where collaboration is either already taking place or is intended as they're standing up and scaling out, and to see how that plays into the general improvements that I see, not just that the tool helps you move content from X to Y, but that if you think about what could I do with that file, let's just think about a Word document. On premises, of course, I can edit it and share and do some of those things. But what really transitions to when you put that file into Teams, you are physically moving the file from one place to the other, but you're also putting it into a location that just has, sometimes an overwhelmingly new amount of capabilities in terms of how people can work together. And the way that I've seen you position this before, and I know how the tool is being built, it is to really think about, how do I move from on-premises to a new digital environment like Teams, something that's got rich capabilities, but I want my file to land intact. I don't want to lose content, and I want to move the right content so that people can really hit the ground running when they think about that file now in Teams.
Definitely. I think that's the way we wanted to position it. And on top of it, I would say we even simplified not just Teams, but for OneDrive, we knew that for OneDrive, all you shouldn't have to know is your email address, and then you should be able to move content into it. So really our goal was to make it simple to bring your content to a place where you can more easily share, collaborate, and then basically use all the new functionality without losing the history part of like what your team has been building or you have been building yourself.
Simon, is there any last bits of advice that you would have when customers are thinking about migrating content to the cloud, whether they're big or small in terms of size of people, or when you think about size and amount of content?
Definitely. So we still have a full page on performance for migration, and then there's a FAQ section which mention for large enterprise that are bringing more than 100 terabyte of content, although they can definitely move that content, we'd love to hear from you ahead of time, and so we can give proper guidance. So please follow that link over there and make sure that we can help you in our best fashions. Additionally, for everyone else and actually anyone in general, if you have feedback, we do look at user voice, and we do look at the feedback that you can now provide through the tool. So one of the latest addition we did in the tool was to be able to send feedback directly from within the product. So please do send it there. We look at everything, and although we can't answer everything, we do definitely base that for our next future builds.
Excellent. So send Simon feedback. And if you've got a lot of content, 100 plus terabytes, which is a lot of content, but certainly reasonable, that we just want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So, inform, engage with Microsoft, engage with Simon and team, and all will be good. Simon, thank you for your time today, and thanks for everything that you're doing to help get content into the cloud.
Awesome, and thank you as well.
There's a lot that migration can do to get all of the content into the right place, and to hear across all the things that Simon shared, what was new this month, and holistically what's available for migration, really sets you up for success. And with that, migration will take us into learning more about what shipped for teamwork across Microsoft 365. We start teamwork with a big FYI per a big disclosure announcement that we shared at the Build 2020 conference, Microsoft Lists. Microsoft Lists is an evolution of SharePoint lists, expanding on the ability to support a multitude of work management scenarios so you can stay on top of what matters most to your team, like tracking issues, asset management, managing events, inventory tracking, and more, using customizable views and smart rules to keep everyone in sync. Lists complement the productivity portfolio alongside task management apps like Planner, file management, group calendars, chats, meetings, note-takings, all the tools to best support sharing and working together. The note here is that I published 10 new items to the Microsoft 365 public roadmap to indicate all and everything that's coming soon, like the new Lists homepage, ready-made templates, customizable forms, rules, comments, creating lists in Microsoft Teams, the Lists mobile app, and more. Most will land this summer in Microsoft 365, and we know in advance that the Lists mobile app will come for iOS later in this year. We're excited to signal the evolution of SharePoint Lists, aka Microsoft Lists, coming soon. Last, a Lists intro-known FYI. We published a unique episode all about Microsoft Lists this month, chatting with our List engineer leads, Michaela Barrett and Lincoln Damaris. A great informative discussion, I guarantee it, and I think you'll get a real great insight into what Microsoft Lists is and how it's evolving SharePoint Lists. Staying with lists and now focusing on what's shipping this month, you can now conditionally show or hide columns in a SharePoint list or library form. This allows people to share or hide columns in a SharePoint list or library form based on another column's values by specifying a formula. The formula is made of equations that perform conditional checks on certain values. For example, you could hide a number column from view if the row number is equal to or less than a specific number, thus only showing data that is over a certain desired threshold to call to the attention of others that are viewing the form. There's a lot more that you can learn here to understand what you can do with conditional formulas, and there will be a great article to learn how to show or hide columns in a list or library form. One last item on the May Roadmap Pitstop list. In SharePoint, you can now create a list from a Microsoft Excel table. This is a new way to create a list, saving you time while putting the data in a location that opens up new collaborative scenarios. To create a list from Excel, you select a table of data from the Excel file. Before importing, you can change the column types, and all of your data will be copied in as new rows and row items in the new list. You can then assign and adjust data types to other columns. You can enhance the visuals by designing row and column formatting, use conditional rules to make the list data intuitive and helpful, set reminders, and of course, extend even further by building productivity apps with Power Automate for custom flows and Power Apps for customizing forms to a greater extent. Your list then becomes the foundational data source. One important note to close out on lists from Excel: you can analyze SharePoint list items at any time back in Excel. Excel creates a table with a one-way data connection. You can click Refresh All at any time to get the latest data and information from the list. One note here, changes made to the Excel table are purely for your analysis and won't be sent back to the SharePoint list. Our last item for teamwork is all about bringing teamwork from on-premises and up-leveling it within Microsoft 365. This is what we discussed with Simon earlier, that the SharePoint migration tool makes it easy to bring content from on-premises directly into Microsoft Teams. You define your source where the files will be moved from, and then select a team you own or have access to determine the channel you want to use as the destination. The real value beyond clicking the magic Go button is what you can do now with all the set of files for greater co-authoring, working in the browser with Office for the web, syncing files for offline use, improved thumbnail previews, and more. Plus the unique benefit of having a chat experience side by side with your content. A lot of great things that you can do with the SharePoint migration tool all up, and specifically now moving all your content much more easily into Microsoft Teams. Okay, this month we have 2 related items on the Roadmap Pitstop. Let's first talk about a new content creation tool. You can now use Microsoft Stream to record your screen. That's right, screen stream, excellent, woo! The content creator says, what? Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Garth. I'll take it from here. Video creators can record any window or screen, add mic or system audio, and include webcam video. There is no need to download any additional software. The tool is web-based and works with the latest version of Edge or Chrome. Show, don't tell, but please tell everyone that they have a new tool to show, to share an issue they're seeing, to demonstrate a new app or tool, or to build out training materials, all streamlined within Microsoft 365. There's a great help article to show you how to create a screen recording, and of course a lot more that you can do with Microsoft Stream. Let's wrap up related items on a solid compliance note. Microsoft 365 Records Management is now generally available. Records managers, start your record declaration engines. You can now utilize the records management solution to help your organization meet your regulatory record-keeping obligations through discovering, classifying, labeling, retaining, and defensively deleting content across your Microsoft 365 tenant. That's inclusive of third-party data. This new solution is the recommended and forward-looking approach to managing records in Microsoft 365, available within the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. Of course, a lot more to read on this one to learn how you can take full advantage of managing records within Microsoft 365. Now, I know as we near the end of this episode, you are on the edge of your seat for what's coming soon. teasers, aka a peek into next month, June 2020. Teaser number 1, the SharePoint default site theme is changing from blue to teal, unless of course you customize your theme otherwise. Teaser number 2, the list's quick edit page size is expanding from 30 items to 100, which equals no more pagination for the most commonly sized lists. That's it with the teasers. We'll share a ton more with the full Roadmap Pitstop June 2020 edition next month. We've added a list of important resource links in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community within the SharePoint community blog, giving you all that you need to get up to speed and stay ahead. We hope you've enjoyed this nice, smooth ride through the Roadmap Pitstop. May you stay engaged, send us your comments, and ask questions. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward. Till next month, may the features be with you always.